And we are honored to be joined by Republicans and Democrats and independents alike, because this issue transcends partisan politics. This is about we, the people, returning to our core principles as a nation. And so I am honored now to introduce two of our leaders in this fight, representing two different sides of the political spectrum, to discuss the importance of this We the People pledge for our state and for our nation. First, I'm honored to introduce the former Chief Justice of the New Hampshire Supreme Court, a man who served as Associate Justice from 1995 to 2004, as Chief Justice from 2004 to 2010, who then went on to serve as Dean of the UNH School of Law and as the founding Executive Director of the Warren B. Rudman Center for Justice and Public Service, someone who in his time also fought for reform. Please join me in welcoming former Chief Justice John Broderick.
Good afternoon. I've never had the privilege to follow Paul Revere, so it's not a bad day for me, Paul. I wonder if all of you would join me, very briefly, in acknowledging the incredible work and dedication of Dan Weeks. And I want to congratulate all of you for being here today. This is a huge issue, as Donald Trump would say. This is a huge issue in American public life and national and state politics. In a time where there's such division in this country, Republicans and Democrats can barely agree on the time of day, but almost all of them agree that Citizens United was bad law and bad public policy, and for that we should be grateful. Change is necessary. Change is necessary. There was a time, and I've been in New Hampshire for more than 4 decades, when $100 made a difference, when $1,000 from a citizen was a huge contribution. We don't matter as much now as we used to. It ought to trouble every single American that 158 families, according to the New York Times, have contributed half the money that's been raised by both parties thus far in the presidential primaries. Think about that. That a fraction of 1% of the money in 2014 was given by people who are billionaires. My question is this: why would someone donate $100 million, dark, unaccountable money, to an independent group, a super PAC, unless they were buying something or believing they were buying something? I mean, you got to deal with that reality. They're not doing it for good government. They're doing it for their personal interests. And the other thing that should trouble us is what is it they think they're buying and who's selling it? Who's selling it? I agree with Dan Weeks, until this issue is addressed, either by a constitutional amendment, and while we're waiting for that, by transparency. We could have transparency tomorrow. We could have transparency tomorrow. The Congress of the United States could pass a law making all those contributions public. That's not a violation of anyone's free speech. It's interesting to me, by the way, as a lawyer and a judge for all these years, that corporations do not have rights against self-incrimination under the Fifth Amendment, but they have free speech rights under the First Amendment. That's troubling to me. It's troubling to me. The consequences of Citizens United may have been unintended, but they are very real. Members of Congress spend between 30 and 70% of their day raising money.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Isn't that shocking to you?
No, correct.
It's really shocking to me. And it's very appropriate that Dan Weeks and all of you have started this campaign in a big way in the state, in the first in the nation primary. Our voice is loud nationally, but it needs to get a lot louder. Because if we don't deal with it, if we don't deal with this problem, pretty soon it won't matter who's on the ballot. It won't matter. And we will be so distant from our government, fewer people will vote. Let me tell you the other crime that's being committed here, in my view. Most of the big money in politics, which doesn't come from us, comes from people with very special interests. And so we have false debates. We have candidates on the far left and candidates on the far right accepting money with a specific purpose. Try to run for public office and say, I'm going to compromise. I'm going to try to act in the public interest. I'm going to be bipartisan where possible. Try to raise money with that bumper sticker. You can't do it in American political life. This organization and this pledge is fundamentally important. Fundamentally important. So I applaud all of you. I applaud Dan Weeks, and we need to get about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chief Justice.